Nelifer.
Yes.
I can feel you preparing for this one. It seems that millionaires are fleeing the UK in record numbers. Tell us about that. This is the front page of the Times. Is this a net good? Are you happy about this?
I think that this is just a thing that's happening in the world, and it's about as much or as less important as the fact that we have a bottom 20% in this country that are stuck, that there is no social mobility in this country. I am more worried about people rising out of poverty than I am about money leaving this country. But I do want to point a few things about this article because I know you'll be proud of me. So, Henley Private Wealth Migration Report, quite well respected, so Google says. They're not kooks, out in the far exteriors of think tanks. They believe that a record 142,000 millionaires across the world will relocate. A large proportion of that will be from Britain. 2014 was a bad year. 2024 was a bad year. 2025 will be a worse year for millionaires in Britain. But they go on to say that all of this, according to this think tank, began with the brain drain and the wealth capital drain after Brexit. So they're seeing a pattern emerge from Brexit into COVID, into the new tax laws led by the Labour government, and they think that this is going to go well into 2020.
Well, I think that's right, Jake. Or are they just running away because it's the Labour government? They think that they're going to be overtaxed?
Well, I think it's complicated, isn't it? But, it's mixed. But clearly this is accelerating. It's something we should be deeply worried about in this country. 1% of income taxpayers pay 13% of all income tax in the last year. If you wanted to design a scheme to really damage a country, you would have a tax system that drove away the wealthiest who pay the biggest proportion of your tax, and a benefit system that brought the global poor in from around the world. Now, we can have a debate about whether that's the right or wrong thing to do, but actually, if you bring in more people who are taking out and you're getting rid of the people who are putting in, that is completely unsustainable. And it's interesting that even the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, is so concerned about this, according to the Times. They are contemplating a U-turn in the budget to try and stem this flow of UK taxpayers leaving the country.
One of the drivers of this was the change to the non-dom tax status. That happened under the Tories. And do you think, Jake, it's really important to keep millionaires in this country if you think they're not prepared to pay tax? Because if they're driven away because they'll be forced to pay tax, what's the benefit?
It's quite interesting.
Keeping them
so
in
there was
country?
an announcement by Nigel Farage yesterday about how he would try and keep people in the country. And the figures he used, I just read in the papers this morning, is that on average, a non-dom taxpayer, and the main thing about non-dom isn't the fact that you don't pay tax. You do pay UK tax on all your UK income. It's about not paying inheritance tax. A non-dom taxpayer, on average, contributes £125,000 per year by way of UK income tax. So if people want to live here and spend 100 grand a year
creation
on tax.
No, it's about them being bad capitalists. Billionaires are terrible capitalists because they can't spend the money that they earn. That is a bad capitalist. Investing all of your money and not spending it in your local community is bad capitalism. One of the key points, one of the key tenets of capitalism and the society that we live in is that we have the free movement of people, capital, and resources and things. And we don't do that in this country. So, and another thing is really important. Millionaires, they're not average people. We're not forcing out the middle classes here. This isn't them with their little bindles on their back, trotting off to Italy. At the end of the day, the tax system has been extremely beneficial to them, and now it's just slightly less so.
So, I mean, look, some millionaires are average people. There are people who bought houses in the southeast of England.
People.
But
most people
actually are middle class people. Are on your definition.
Middle class people.
There are middle class people.
Just to be clear, most people that own a home that would have bought a council home.
They're not the
non-doms
non-doms we're speaking of.
No, I agree. But that's the point that Jack's made.
But look, there are many millionaires who are just ordinary people who happened to buy a house 30 years ago. They're very lucky, but people like that. But better to have someone in this country contributing, on average, according to the papers, £125,000 a year by way of income tax than not have them here. Because once they're gone, guess what? We get nothing. And people, for dogmatic reasons, might want to say, well, these rich people can just leave. OK, you're entitled to your view. Who's going to pay for the NHS? Who's going to put police on the streets? Who's going to pay that massive benefits bill that we have in this country?
When the people we're talking about, and they are the ultra-rich, we're not talking about somebody that's inherited a house.
Apparently.
Well, no, but
that's not what I said. I mean, I know it's...
When we're talking about the ultra-rich and the impact they have, for example, on London, it's not just about tax, right? It's all about the ancillary businesses that benefit from them being there. And you can see how a city like London, which is the chief beneficiary beneficiary of these people. It's not really regional.
Yes.
Get the, let's call it the kind of happy benefits of those people being here.
Yes.
And that has a broader social impact because of how they spend their money, not just in tax, but also all of the smaller jobs that serve that group of people.
I hear you, and I take your point. My concern is, look, the Chancellor of the Exchequer must raise funds to run the government and the country. We can pull all the levers we want at the bottom and draw up $1 million here and $500,000 there, or we can tax those on the other end of the spectrum and try and get more money in. You're going to get more money from rich people than you are poor people, and I do not believe that wealthy people, especially those of non-dom status, pay their way in this country.
Well, the answer is they've got to pay their bit of their way. They either pay something, is the point that Jake makes, or they go elsewhere.
Off you go, you're someone else's concern.
Well, that's your
who's
view.
going to pay for all services?
No doubt people at home will be screaming into their televisions, either with you or against you. But maybe they're thinking, you're a woman with a strong point of view. Perhaps you should be Prime Minister. And